Self-improvement is healthy. It's good. And I'm not against it at all. The problem is that sometimes we try to change things that are deeply wired into us, right? And in those cases, it might actually be better to just accept ourselves instead of constantly trying to overwrite our nature. This probably affects everybody, but I'd argue it hits Gen Z and Gen Alpha probably the hardest. Self-improvement culture is louder than ever. There's this constant pressure to optimize yourself. And look, I think it's admirable when people want to grow, becoming more self-aware and trying to fix your flaws. These are just objectively good things. But let me use myself as an example, right? On kind of defending this thesis that sometimes self-improvement, or rather self-acceptance of your flaws, is better than self-improvement. I am somebody who's very introverted, not socially awkward, and I'm not like anxious, but I am very introverted. What I mean by this is that my social battery dies very quickly. After a few hours of being around people, I feel heavy, drained, and I just want to go home. For a long time, I tried to fight that. Society clearly rewards extroversion, right? We praise the life of the party, the outgoing person, the highly social person. It feels like that's the benchmark. And if you don't meet it, sometimes something must be wrong with you. So I try to force myself to be more social, more outgoing and visible. And every time I did that, I didn't feel fulfilled. I remember being in like rooms full of people and still feeling alone. Not because I was excluded, but because I felt like I was kind of pretending, pretending like I wanted to be there. And, it's something personal with the people that I was with. They were all fine people. It's just unfortunately like a personality mismatch, As in, I was really too introverted to really appreciate what was going on. Eventually, I realized something uncomfortable, and it's just that you can't just brute force your way out of your own temperament, I'm just someone who doesn't enjoy heavy socialization, and I think that's fine. What I learned from this is that sometimes we fight part of ourselves that are like our core traits, and we kind of like assume that these core traits, because society just doesn't seem to like these traits, and we automatically kind of prescribe them as flaws, And I think there's a difference between traits and flaws, If a trait is causing real suffering, and if it's like ruining or hurting other people, then yes, you probably have a moral obligation to work on these things, right? Even if that process feels uncomfortable, even if you fail multiple times and you feel like you're just flailing around, it's still like an admirable thing that you're trying to change a flaw, not for yourself, but for the people that it affects, But if this flaw doesn't actually harm anyone and you don't really incur any suffering from it, then you gotta ask yourself, am I really trying to improve, or am I just trying to conform? I made myself miserable trying to be more social. Would a more extroverted version of myself have certain advantages? Absolutely. But the cost of becoming that version felt heavier than the benefits, You gotta ask yourself, because self-improvement isn't a free thing. It's very difficult. And you gotta ask yourself, is the suffering actually worth it? The journey of going into self-improvement for certain things? Is a journey actually worth the benefit? Sometimes self-improvement just becomes self-rejection, So here's the distinction I've landed on. If your traits causes genuine harm to yourself or others, keep working on them, and you're doing well, because it's not easy to defy deeply wired traits that are just basically part of your nature. These personality flaws. It's not It's not easy. It's very difficult. It's a silent battle, but a very difficult one. Even if you're flailing, you know, you're still doing well. Even if the progress is slow, you're still doing well. Because again, there is no manual to your specific suffering. And the fact that you're improving without any external help, I think that's an accomplishment. But if your traits just make you different, and the only real problem is that like other people prefer you to do something else or be a certain other way, then maybe acceptance is just wiser, you know, accepting that you operate differently. Growth is good, but not every trait needs to be conquered. Some just need to be understood.